Now, welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time it's the results of the poll for Commander Cody that we'll be taking a look at. We'll then be comparing those results to all the other characters we have done thus far, before I then read and respond to some comments. And what a perfect time it is to look at this particular character, when you consider the first episode of The Bad Batch will be released tomorrow, which is a show that, in a way, is thanks to his existence, which I'll talk more about in a bit. But before I get to all that, just a reminder, you can already nominate and or vote for which character we do next by heading down and responding to my pinned comment below with a character name or voting with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whichever character gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the one we do next. Alright, and now on to the results for Commander Cody, where we'll see that 26% of people gave him an A, 54% then gave him a B, 16% thought he was a C tier character, which left just 1% to give him a D, and a final 2% to give him an F. And so when we do all the math and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, Commander Cody ends up with an average score of 4.01, which puts him into a tie for 24th place with Cal Kestis, but Cody gets the edge by having a higher percentage of A votes, by 1%, which is our tiebreaker. And before right away getting to your comments, let me once again take a moment to say thank you to everyone who does indeed vote on the polls, comment, and watch the videos. It's all greatly appreciated. And so now let's begin, as usual, with the top-rated comment, which this time came to us from Bob, who said, "He's no Rex, but still a respectable soldier. It really hurt when he turned on Obi-Wan. Imagine if we saw the relationship more flushed out like Anakin and Rex. B." And a lot of people in the comments pointed out that of all the clones the show really kind of focused on or explored, Cody may have got the least amount of attention or development, and certainly nowhere near the amount Rex got, especially when it comes to exploring the relationship or friendship between Rex and Anakin. We didn't get anywhere near the same thing between Cody and Obi-Wan. And I do wonder if that's because we knew how the story between them would end, between Cody and Obi-Wan, though maybe end is the wrong word. They could and likely will see each other again at some future point. And not doing so kind of feels like a wasted opportunity. But anyway, we saw what happens in Revenge of the Sith. We saw Cody immediately, without hesitation, give the order to open fire on Obi-Wan after Order 66 was given. And yes, after Season 6 of Clone Wars, we now know that was because of a chip in Cody's head, not so much a conscious decision by Cody and or all of the clones. And so I wonder if the chip idea was one Lucas came up with down the road, or at some point while the Clone Wars series was going on, if he thought to himself, or maybe Dave Filoni or someone else pointed out, that hey, these clones and their Jedi generals are forming such close friendships that it really doesn't make sense that there wouldn't be even a moment of hesitation out of Cody or any of the other clones when Order 66 is given. That the explanation we got in Episode 2, that they follow any order without question, just isn't going to hold up after we've seen multiple seasons of the Clone Wars sort of develop them. And I don't just mean develop close friendships with Jedi generals and the clones, but just develop the clones as people, as human beings. That to imply they all follow just mindlessly like drones and would follow Order 66 without question completely undermines what we've been seeing in Clone Wars. And that Lucas was almost forced to come up with a different idea for them, to come up with this chip idea, to put something literally in their heads that compelled them to follow Order 66. And so maybe the reason why Cody wasn't ever really focused on in the Clone Wars series and why he was also a more by-the-book clone was because originally Lucas had no intent to really explore the clones quite as much as he did in this series. Or maybe he only wanted to do that with a few of them, like Rex. And he didn't really want to show Cody and Obi-Wan becoming really close because he knew eventually Cody was going to have to, without a second thought, turn and fire on Kenobi. And like I said at the time, or when he started Clone Wars, he didn't really have the chip idea yet in his head. And so constantly showing Obi-Wan and Cody being really buddy-buddy wouldn't make much sense when we got to Order 66. And again, Cody just opens fire without even a moment of hesitation. Alright, and moving on now, we have this comment from Jack Keevy who said, "Gave him an A because he was the first clone we saw with some sort of personality, for example when talking to Kenobi in Episode 3. Probably one of, if not the first clone they thought of humanizing, and could have been the basis for the personalities of the clones we see in the Clone Wars series." Also, we have this comment from the one in the middle who said, "When have I ever let you down?" That line alone was the first preview we had that the clones were more than just organic droids. Because of Cody, we could get amazing arcs like Umbara that showcased the individuality of the clones. Then there's also this one from Captain DC who said, Cody was the first hint in the prequel trilogy of the true humanity the clones always had, solid B. And then this one from Austin Richardson who said, before the Clone Wars, he was the only clone we actually knew. We saw Obi-Wan had a relationship with him. That's why we felt it when he executed Order 66 and shot down Kenobi, B. Also, this comment from Vaughn Sowards who said, he was basically the first time we were exposed to a clone having a personal identity. That opened the door for all the amazing clone characters being developed in the Clone Wars show. He led the way. And I agree, Cody opened the door for what we'd see the clones become in the Clone Wars animated series, which then led directly to the reason why we're now getting the Bad Batch. Those couple lines in Revenge of the Sith, which he alluded to a friendship, or at the very least a bit of rapport between Cody and Obi-Wan, may have, for all we know, just kind of been thrown in there by Lucas to add just a little bit of impact to Order 66, to make it feel more like a betrayal because the two had been something akin to friends. And then maybe he thought later on there's something there worth exploring, or maybe he always had the idea to sort of explore the dynamic between the clones and their Jedi generals. Who knows? Who knows what George Lucas thought and when he thought it. Like I said before though, I wouldn't be surprised if that chip idea was something he came up with down the road, not something he always had in mind. After he realized there's just no way some of these clones would turn without any kind of hesitation, not after Clone Wars had done such an amazing job of turning them into sort of free, independent thinkers. Which actually makes the chips not only kind of necessary, but in a way makes that whole story even more tragic, that in the end they had that freedom or independence stripped away from them, and they turned on the very individuals, the Jedi, who helped them sort of discover that freedom or individuality in the first place. And the root of all of that is basically Cody saying to Obi-Wan, come on, when have I ever let you down? Okay, and moving on now, we have this comment from MLG Master 114 who said, Commander Cody didn't have as much screen time as Rex, but he was still really well written. Watching the prequels for the first time before the Clone Wars came out, the first thing you probably thought when you saw Order 66 was, so they were bad the entire time. After watching Clone Wars, however, you think, dang, especially for Cody since he and Obi-Wan were actually friends. And, if you just watch the prequels, or if that's all you've ever seen and you don't keep up with the lore in any other way, then I don't know what, if anything, you can make of the clones from that movie. They don't feel like much more than droids, really, other than, again, that brief moment between Cody and Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith. But even that doesn't really show them to be much more than droids when you consider we have seen plenty of droids with personality before in Star Wars. It just shows us that maybe there could be a bit more to them than meets the eye. But then when Cody just fires on Obi-Wan and you see all the other clones basically do the same, you're left wondering, did they know all along they would end up doing this? They're so kind of casual about it that they, again, either feel like droids or like they knew this was always what they were meant to do. You almost feel like they were in on it the whole time. And it's kind of amazing how the Clone Wars animated series just recontextualizes all of that, just adds to the overall tragedy of Order 66. Alright, and next up here we have this comment from Jay Makowski who said, I would want to see him as a villain in the Kenobi show. Then this one from Nick Vegas who said, we definitely need to see a conclusion arc for him. Hopefully in the Bad Batch they can explore some of those lingering stories that weren't finished in the Clone Wars. Then this one from LTG Videos who said, Cody never really gets enough screen time or characterization, so it's hard to really rate him highly. He's a competent, by-the-book soldier. I hope the Bad Batch series shows how he deals with the fallout from Order 66. C for me, but with potential to go up. We also had Obi-Wan Kenobi himself weighing in on his former commander who said, I have a feeling he's going to be prominent in Bad Batch. I hope so anyway. Then also this comment from Zach Watrin who said, one of the best clone troopers of all time. He was a good contrast to Rex by being more by the book. I love his dynamic with Obi-Wan, my favorite Jedi. And his Phase 1 armor is cool. Thanks to the Clone Wars show, his execution of Order 66 is far more tragic. I hope we get to see his fate in the Bad Batch. And I think there's almost no way we don't see Cody in the Bad Batch. In fact, I think we may just see him right away in the first episode. And if he's not in the first one, then early here at some point in Season 1, I think we'll see him. I think they may turn him into a bit of a reluctant villain in this series, that he's been more by the book and that sure he regrets firing on Obi-Wan, and if not for the chip, he may have hesitated and maybe disobeyed outright. But now that he's done that, what else does he have but to be loyal to the Republic, which is of course now the Empire, and I think we're going to see a lot of clones kind of feeling that way. I also think there's a chance we could see him in the Kenobi series, played by Tamora Morrison. Though if that does happen, I just hope it's not too contrived. I hope there's a good reason why they run into each other that makes sense, not that it comes off feeling too much like fan service. Either way, I am looking forward to learning about whatever became of Commander Cody. He's really one of those characters who needs his story arc either wrapped up or continued in the Bad Batch. Alright, and now time for just a few final comments, starting with this one from Jackson Brown, who said, I really liked the banter he had with Rex and Kenobi, just a shame we didn't see him much. It is a really sad scene in Revenge of the Sith when he follows Order 66. It is like the Cody we knew and loved died at that moment. A great character, but not fleshed out enough like Fives or Rex. B for me. Then this one from Keiko, who said, it feels like they basically forgot about him as the show went on. And then this one from Lord Jaden, who said, what I always found ironic was that Obi-Wan's Commander Cody ended up turning, while Anakin's Commander Rex never turned. Also this comment from Marty Mills, who said, Cody is the OG clone commander, his Tartakovsky The Clone Wars appearance and his legendary Revenge of the Sith appearance were some of the first things I thought of as a kid when I heard the name Star Wars. Also, we have this one from Mystery Bros, who said, he's honestly my favorite clone. He has a really cool design with the jetpack and the eye scar, and besides Boba, he was really the first clone with personality in the movies. I'd definitely give him an A. Also, we have this comment from Normal Guy, who said, I gave him a B because even though he didn't have a lot of screen time, he was, in my opinion, the perfect clone. He always followed orders, but at the same time was independent enough to be effective and come up with good strategies to use in the battlefield, making him the perfect match for Obi-Wan and the 212th. Also, we got this one from S.G. Thomas, who said, he's a solid secondary character that fulfills his purpose, in my opinion. Then this one from The Geek, who said, as much as I want to give him a B or A, he just overall isn't as developed as the other characters in those tiers. However, he could easily fall in those tiers if more time was spent with him. So for me, it's a reluctant C. And finally here we have this comment from David Ames, who said, C, he's a really solid character that works well with Rex and Obi-Wan, but needs more screen time to get properly developed. As far as on-screen clones go, he seems to be the closest to Jango Fett in terms of lethality and personality, deadly, efficient, smart, and a great leader. This bounces off nicely with the slightly more laid-back Rex and the capable Jedi General he served with. I only wish we got more of him to justify a higher grade. And though I'd personally give Cody probably a low B, I do agree he needs more screen time and does sometimes feel a bit forgotten in the Clone Wars animated series. And again, maybe because at first, before there was the whole chip idea, George Lucas didn't want to show him getting too close or too friendly with Obi-Wan. He wanted him to be a more by-the-book clone so that him firing on Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith just made sense. Either way, as I also said, I'd be stunned if Cody isn't at the very least in the Bad Batch, if not also in the upcoming Kenobi series, given at least a small part to play in that. As this poll shows, and as the comments also show, he's a character a lot of fans do want more from, and very much want to know what became of him after we see him in Revenge of the Sith. And I think through him and the Bad Batch series in general, we'll have the opportunity to show the further evolution of some of the clones, those who get away from the Empire and make something else of their lives, and the de-evolution of other clones, those who stay and simply become good soldiers and follow orders. And though some might hate me saying this, I do feel like Cody may end up being in that latter group. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think of Commander Cody, or what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about him in this video. Or you can feel free to nominate and or vote for which character we will do next. Either way, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.